All right, so we have our model done. Everything is set in place, and we now want to generate drawings from it, right? What good is having 3D model if we can't generate drawings from it? So I'm going to start off with creating an elevation, because that's, I think, the easier digital drawing to create. And so we could cover a lot of the basic tools just by talking about elevations. And then in later tutorials, we'll go ahead and start kind of cutting into the model to create the floor plans and sections, things like that. Okay. So first off, what exactly is an elevation? So an elevation is a view, is an exterior view, right, of your building. However, it has to be an orthographic. In order for it to be an elevation, it needs to be an orthographic drawing, not a perspective one. An elevation, we should be able to print to a set scale. So I should be able to say I need an elevation at a 1/4 inch scale, right? Um, and that's because once it prints out, I should be able to take an architectural scale and run actual dimensions off this. If I do an elevation from my perspective view, something like that, well, everything is distorted because everything is in perspective, right? So just because you set the camera into like an exterior elevation view, but it's still in perspective view, does not make this an elevation drawing. Elevation drawing has to be taken from an orthographic straight on view where there is no perspective to it. Okay. Now, I want to take a minute to explain the naming of perspectives of the perspective drawings, like what is a north perspective, or what's your, sorry, talking too fast. The naming of the elevation drawings, like what is a north elevation, south elevation, east, west elevation, right? And then we'll go ahead and confuse you by talking about the naming in Rhino of what's front and back, left and right. So the actual proper way, the architectural standards of naming elevation is if you're standing inside the building and you're looking north, then this exterior view would be considered your north elevation. So in my perspective view, if I'm standing inside the building looking north, this would be my north elevation, right? Standing inside the building and I'm looking east, then this is my east elevation, just like that, right? So that means this is my south elevation, and then this is my west elevation, right? North, east, south, west. Okay. So when we're naming elevations, it goes based on where you're standing, or I'm sorry, it goes based on if you're standing or what the wall, the exterior wall is, if you're standing inside the house. Okay. However, in Rhino, Rhino names its views based on if you're standing along this red axis. So if I'm standing on the red axis and I'm looking in this direction, that is considered my front view. And so this is my front view. If I'm standing here and I'm looking there and that is my front view, then that means that this is my right side view. And if I'm standing here looking this way, that is my back view. And then to the left, that's my left view. Okay. So if I'm standing on the red line looking up, that's considered my front view. However, if this is my front, then this means that this is my back view, right? It's kind of opposite from the north and south. This is our north view, this is our south view, but in Rhino, this is our front view and this is our back view. You see, I told you I was going to confuse you. So this all depends on, or this all relates to where the view is taken from, right? Where's the person standing? Where are you standing? Are you in the middle of the house? That's your architectural standard. In Rhino, are you on the red line? Those are Rhino standards. Okay. So moving forward, I want to do an elevation of my south side, okay, of my south elevation. So if I'm standing in here, this is, and I'm looking out to the south, this is my south elevation, which is what I have here in my front view. Hopefully this makes it clear and it's not that confusing. Okay, so I have my front view. I have it set up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a make 2D to create a two-dimensional drawing, right? In my front view, this technically is a three-dimensional, it's a view of a 3D model. However, I need to flatten this up and make it into a 2D drawing. So what I'm going to do is use the make 2D command. So I'm going to do a cross window around the entire model. Okay. And then I'm going to type in make 2D. I'll hit enter, and then I'm going to get the 2D drawing options. Okay. Now this little preview here is actually very, very helpful. Okay, so don't just kind of glaze over it, especially when we're starting off, because it's going to tell us a lot. So first of all, the make 2D is the projection taken from the view or the C-plane. And in this case, we're going to, technically it's both. But we're almost always going to be using the view. Okay. Now, if we come down here to the options, we're going to leave ours and just leave it to group. And that's actually all we're going to do. But if you want to know what's what, if I click on tangent, you'll see here that the tangent lines are going to show up. If I click on hidden, it means that it's going to show me the line work that's behind, that I'm seeing that's behind my object. We have scene silhouette, so if you want to really thicken up that profile line, if you want to add the viewport rectangle, which is this kind of box right there, and then register with previous is kind of, we won't touch that. So we're just going to uncheck everything and just leave it as a group output. And then at the bottom here, it says layer name. Okay. Now what's going to happen is it's going to give us a two-dimensional flat drawing of our elevation, and it's going to put all of that line work into a dedicated layer. Okay, so it's going to make its own layer inside of our layers panel, and it's going to name that layer whatever we put here. So I'm going to change this layer and just call it elevation. Actually, no, let's call it 2D elevation. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to give it a minute, and there's my elevation. Now, I always like to just move it out of the way. And now we'll go ahead and take a look at this. So here is a 2D elevation. You can see in my perspective view. Let's zoom in over here. That it is a flat two-dimensional drawing. Okay? And it's a flat two-dimensional drawing of my front view of my elevation. Now, one of the things you'll notice right away is that some lines came out black, while other lines came out the same color as the layers. So let's go over here to my layers tab, and let's see what's going on. You'll see here we have our 2D elevation, and that is set to black. And then we have the visible lines and the curves, which is also set to black, right? So in theory, all of my lines are actually set to black, yet I still have these colored lines. So what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and click on the lines. Actually, we'll do it individually, just kind of one, and then we'll apply it to the whole thing. So I'm going to select on the lines and notice that it's grouped because we clicked that grouped object. And then I'm going to come over here to my properties tab. And right here, we have display color, and it's set to custom. So I'll click on this pull down, and I'm going to set that by layer. Now when I uncheck, there we go. Now everything is black because the layer, where is that? The layer says that the color should be black. Okay. So now I'll go ahead and do a cross window, run the whole thing. Let's do this one more time. Over here where it says display color, I'm going to change this to by layer. Okay, and that's it. All right. So now I have my drawing. And I have the line work in the correct color. Okay. Now what I want to do is go around and take a look and just clean up the drawing. Now this is a pretty clean Make 2D. Sometimes the Make 2D does a decent job, but it'll leave certain areas that are just not cleaned up. So we might have to extend a line, trim a line, but we also need to clean up the line work, or clean things up as needed, right? We know that in a true elevation, let's go over here. No, I can do it here. In a true elevation, if this house was really built, we would not see this line right there, right? Imagine if we're going to stucco this, when we stucco, we're not going to stop right at the line there where the floor starts. The stucco is going to go all the way to the edge of the bottom of the wall, right? We see the line because that's how we built it in Rhino. However, in reality, that line is not going to exist. So we would come over here to the top view. I would select this and then explode it so that I could select the line work individually. Oh, it's group, not exploded. I'm sorry. Type ungroup. Then I'll go ahead and click on it and delete it. Now the same is true for this little cutout here. Okay, oops, deleted. Let me ungroup that. That I might have to explode actually. Nope, okay. So remember that this is a product of the material that we chose, how I kind of cut into the flooring so that I can add a material. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and delete these lines. And the same here with that line. Let's ungroup. So you really want to think about what is this thing going to actually look like when it's built, right? Now, right here, I need to ungroup this. Nope, spell it correctly. And then I'll go ahead and just trim it. There we go. And I'll go ahead and trim this as well, just like that, okay? So once you're done, oh, actually, and this right here too. Let's go ahead and ungroup and delete that. So this really is the way our elevation drawing should look like. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Whenever you do a make 2D, there's a really, really good chance that you're gonna have to go back and make some edits. Okay. All right, so now the next thing that I want to do is cover line weights. Okay. We've talked about line weights in the past, the importance of line weights. We need 3 line weights at least. And that is one that is thicker, then a medium, and then a thin. And the idea is that each line weight is going to represent something that is either closer to us or farther to us, right? So before I go in and I start changing and adjusting line weights, what I want to do is create layers for them. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to create 4 layers, okay? The first one, I'm going to go ahead and call this print lines. And then I'll go ahead and change this to thick, change this to medium, and then change this to thin. Okay. I'll go ahead and drag this out so we can really take a look at this. Okay. Let's go. And what you'll notice is that we actually kind of have a lot of options here. So on here, we can change the line type. So if we want to use and create a hidden line or a center line, this is where we would go and do it. We would create a line that is set specifically with a hidden line, right? But you'll notice that all of the line types by default are set to continuous because we typically just want a continuous line. As we go down the line, we have this color, which is the color that we see, which is different than the color that gets printed. Okay. So you could have, say, your windows, and technically all of these. Oh, what did I do? I accidentally rearranged. Ugh, I rearranged all of my layers right now. So well, all right. Well, what I was going to say is that all of these that have a color should actually all be printed in black, right? So what we would do is come inside here and then just change this So we'd have to do that for all of these. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and just do that another time. If we move to the right, this is our print width, and this is what's going to make a line thick, medium, or thin. So if I'm in thin, I'll go ahead and click on the print width. I'm going to set thin down to 0.18. Okay, and we'll leave it at millimeters. I'll set thick to 0.35. Hit OK. And then I'll change medium. Oh, not the line color. Change the print width to 0.25. So we have a 0.18, 0.25, and a 0.35. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and stick these layers into my lines layer. Oh, come on. If it lets me. Why won't it let me? There we go. So now I'll click. Oh, because the line is active. Okay, let's just go ahead and default. Right there. Let's go ahead and turn the default layer active. Now I should be able to click and drag. There we go. And the same thing with thick. So now we have thick. Let's move medium here, then thin. And we have 0.35, 25, and 18. So now we know that when we print, this is going to be the line weight that gets printed. Okay. Now the other thing I like to do, turn those on, unlock these, is give it a color. Okay. So let's go and change this back to black. Now I'm not going to change the print color because I want it to print in black, but the display color, I do want to change that because if I don't, then everything is going to be black. Everything's going to look the same, and then I'm not going to know which is a heavy line, which is a thin line, which is a medium line, and so on. So let's go ahead and change the color of a thick, and I'll just go with sea green. Oops. I'm all over the place. Let's go ahead and go back to back. All right, thick. We'll go sea green, medium. Pick lavender, and you could pick any color. I'm just kind of going down the line. We'll go with orange. Okay. So now we have thick, medium, and thin lines. So now I can come over here and say, okay, if I'm looking at my drawing, what is closest to me? What do I want to be, what do I want to show as a thicker line? So that's essentially everything that is closest to us, which is going to be this. And this is going to be thick, so I'll go ahead and change object layer. Did I not change the object layer? There we go. You'll notice that it changes color because that's the color we have. Now also go ahead and select this and move this to my thick layer. What I'll also do when I'm working on these types of layers, I'll go ahead and just turn them off. So now I know that those are actually in the thick layer. Well, then we have our windows. Now, technically, this window should all fall under the thick layer. But remember that we're going to print this, and we were just setting the print thicknesses. Because we have 3 lines, if we were to actually print every single one of these lines, each one of these lines is going to show up as a 0.35. And when we print it, it's going to be this massive dark black line. So instead, what I want to do is change these 2 lines that we have here and put these into the thin layer. So I'll go ahead and right click and change object layer. Then I'll go ahead and select this, hold down the shift key. Let's go ahead and just select all of them. And these are the ones that I'll go ahead and put in my thick layer. So the boundaries, let's turn that back on. The boundaries of a window, I'll go ahead and make thick. And then the inside kind of details are going to go in thinner. Okay. So I'll go ahead and turn that off. Now everything else here is going to pretty much be in my medium layer. So let's go ahead and actually let's turn that off so that we don't see it. I'll select the whole thing and put this into my medium layer. Okay. But what I'll do is I'll come back and I'll make changes. So we have this, which goes into thin. Well, let's turn that back on. We'll do the same thing over here. Change this. Okay. And again, with that same concept, that whatever we add, it's all going to print to whatever thickness we have. So 0.25. But the closer the line work is, the brighter or the thicker the line is going to appear. That's not to say that the line is going to get thicker. It just means that it's going to appear thicker because we have these lines so close together. So in this situation, I might actually consider taking all of this stuff that's in the middle here, including the door, and I would take this and just move all of this to the thin layer. So now what you see in that lavender color is the medium. We have orange as thin, and then we have the sea green that's hard to see as a thicker line. Okay. And then that's going to be it. We are pretty much set. Now the next thing would be to print, but we're not going to print just yet. We're going to go ahead and wait until we finish the floor plans and sections in order to print. But we do have our 2D drawing and in a layer that is based on line weights, right? So hopefully that helps you understand kind of the fundamentals of the drawing aspects.